Hi everyone, and welcome to our very first video tutorial in our nutrition unit. We're going to be looking at doing a little refresher on the digestive system today, as well as a little bit about what nutritional science means and what nutrients are. So grab the note that I posted on Google Classroom that goes with this, or write your own notes, whatever you prefer, and we'll get started. Also, just a kind of note that today's lesson might be a little bit long on the long side, so if you prefer to kind of break it up into chunks, by all means, feel free to do that. Okay, let's get started. So let's start by defining nutritional science. So what actually is that? Nutritional science is the study of how nutrients are obtained, broken down, and used by an organism. It also covers dietary needs and disorders caused from improper diet. So we're looking at how do we get nutrients, what happens to those nutrients inside of our body, and what do we need them for? And so that one of the questions, one of those diagnostic questions from last week was, why do we need to eat? And also, what is a good diet? So those are things we're definitely going to be getting into throughout this unit. Here's a little callback to grade 9 science. If you remember this word, heterotrophs, it means that you need to obtain your nutrients by consuming food. And so humans fall under this category. We are not like plants. We're not autotrophs. We can't make our own food through photosynthesis. We need to eat. And so we need nutrients for growth, repair if we have damage to any cells in our body, for just body maintenance in general, and for cell division. So nutrients are super important for our bodies to be able to function properly in the way that they need to be. What are nutrients? Nutrients are chemicals that must be obtained by an organism from its environment for it to survive. So we couldn't just stop eating. We need those nutrients that we obtain from our food, and the type of food that we do eat is really, really important. So let's shift gears. We're gonna, now that we've kind of outlined the very basics of nutrition and what nutrients are, we're gonna do a little refresher on the digestive system, just see what we can remember. So this is kind of a basic overview of how our two systems work together to deliver nutrients to our body cells. So first of all, we're bringing food into the digestive system. The digestive system is going to separate the nutrients from the waste. We're going to be expelling the waste, and then those nutrients get passed on to our circulatory system, our bloodstream, that brings all those nutrients to our body cells. So that's really the zoomed out version. Let's start to zoom in a little bit more. So first of all, the digestive system has 4 main functions: ingestion, digestion, absorption, and excretion. And so we've got 4 things happening. We're taking in food, we're breaking down food, we're absorbing those nutrients, and we're excreting the waste. The main component of our digestive system is called the gastrointestinal tract, or the GI tract for short. And that's the passageway that extends from the mouth to the anus, in which all 4 of these things are happening. So starting at the mouth with ingestion, we're going all the way through the digestive system in one long pathway until we reach excretion. And so that whole thing is called the GI tract. What are the major organs of the GI tract? First, we have the mouth. The mouth's job is to mechanically break down food using the teeth and tongue. So mechanically, meaning that we're actually physically mashing up the food, and then we're chemically breaking down food using saliva. So our salivary glands produce a liquid called saliva that has enzymes in there that are going to help to start to break down our food even further. Next, we have the epiglottis, which is a flap of flesh that covers your trachea as you swallow. Your trachea is your windpipe, what we breathe through. So it's really important that we cover that when you swallow, otherwise you'll get something stuck down the wrong tube, and we all know how horrible that feels. So our epiglottis is our friend. That definitely helps us from not choking. Then we have this long tube that goes all the way to our stomach, and that's called the esophagus. So we're transporting food from the mouth to the stomach. It's aligned with smooth muscles that use a process called peristalsis to move food. And so peristalsis is that wave-like contraction that pushes food along. Now, I might be going through this pretty quickly. I'm hoping that this is a review, but for those of you who maybe haven't done this since like grade 10 or whatever, please feel free to stop at any moment, pause and write things down, or move at your own pace. We're not going to watch that. Maybe I'll post that separately. This is just a inside shot of the esophagus, and you'll be able to see through the video. I'll just post it separately, but you'll be able to see how it kind of looks like you're squishing something along a tube, is what peristalsis is. These muscles are contracting and pushing something along. So then we reach the stomach. We've got a J-shaped muscular sac. It also is going to do both mechanical and chemical digestion. We've got both of those happening. And we've got two circular muscles that allow food in and out of the stomach. So this is really important to regulate what is coming in and when it's going out. So the top one is called the gastroesophageal sphincter, and the second one is called the pyloric sphincter. The way I like to remember it is gastro means stomach, esophageal is like esophagus, so gastroesophageal is that point right here where the esophagus meets the stomach. And then the bottom one here is the pyloric sphincter. Some important liquids that exist in our stomach that help with the chemical digestion part of things is firstly stomach acid, and that helps to kill off any invading pathogens that come in with our food. We have enzymes, lots of different enzymes in the stomach. Pepsin is one example, and this will help break down proteins into peptides. We're going to talk more about that later in the unit, how that actually happens. And then lastly, we have mucus, which is secreted by the stomach lining to help protect it from the harsh stomach acid. So that acid can actually burn our stomach lining if we didn't have this mucus that protects it. So once we've gone through the pyloric sphincter, we are going to enter the small intestine. This is a really important part. We've got a few sections of the small intestine. So first of all, it's called the small intestine. It's actually long, but it's skinny in diameter. So that's why it's called the small intestine. And this is where really the bulk of digestion and absorption is happening. We've got three sections. The first one, the duodenum or the duodenum, I never know which way to pronounce that, is this first section here, this first purple, I don't know if you can see in there, purple section, and a lot of enzymes are getting added here. We've got connection points to our pancreas and our liver and our gallbladder. They all connect in here. And so we've got lots of digestion, breaking down of food happening in there. Next part is the jejunum. So we've got still some digestion happening, and then this is where some of the absorption of nutrients into the bloodstream will happen. But then this last part, the ileum, is where most of the nutrients are being absorbed into the bloodstream. So we have a huge, thick layer of tiny blood vessels that surround the ileum. So they're absorbing lots of nutrients into the bloodstream. And I know some of you were in my grade 11 bio class, so if anyone remembers the trick to this, you might be laughing, but the trick that I use to remember this is kind of like a DJ announcer on the radio. So this is DJ ileum, and that's how you'll always remember the order of the small intestine sections. Here's a little zoomed in version of the ileum. So, and this is what I'm talking about by all those blood vessels. So you can see in this picture here, we've got these little folds in the small intestine, inside the ileum, and they're filled with blood vessels. So these folds are called villi. This kind of more cartoony picture here makes it a little more clear to see. We've got these little finger-like folds, and they help to increase the surface area for the capillaries, the blood vessels, to be able to get in there and absorb as much nutrients as possible. And so, and it's even, you can't even see on this picture, but on these little folds, there's even extra little folds on there that are called microvilli. So there's really just as much surface area as we can possibly have for all these little blood vessels to get at. So once our food has passed through the 3 sections of the small intestine, it will then enter the large intestine. And the large intestine is shorter, but it's much thicker in diameter. So that's why it's called the large intestine. And the main functions of the large intestine are to absorb water and vitamins and to eliminate the waste that we no longer need. So there's lots of bacteria that live in our large intestine. If you think back to our pathogens unit, we talked about helpful bacteria, and tons of them live in our large intestine here, and they help break down food that our own body cells are not able to. And there's lots of health benefits that come from taking care of these bacteria that live in your large intestine. So taking things like probiotics or eating yogurt is a really great thing to do to help with your gut health. So let's go over the kind of sequence that food will travel in your small intestine. So first we have the cecum, this pouch here, and that's actually the connecting point. It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but that would be the connecting point from the ileum of the small intestine. It comes into here. So this is like a pouch that receives all of the material from the small intestine. And then we have the colon, which is the longest part of the large intestine, and this is where most of the water and vitamin absorption is happening. And so it's separated into 4 sections that are named based on the direction that we're traveling in. So the first section here, going up, is called the ascending colon. And ascending means going up, so that kind of makes sense. Ascending colon is this section here. Then we have the transverse colon. Transverse kind of means across, so we're going across here to, with the transverse colon. Then we go down via the descending colon, and then I don't really know where the name for this last little section came from, but this last little section is called the sigmoid colon. So then we are at this final pouch here called the rectum, and that's going to be where waste is stored before removal. And then the last it's another circular muscular opening, is the anus, through which waste is eliminated. So that was the GI tract. And the GI tract is where food is actually traveling through, but that's not everything that we need to talk about in terms of the digestive system. We have these things called accessory organs, which they're organs that the food does not actually travel through, but they're super, super important for digestion. So there's a few of them that we're going to touch on. The first we kind of already talked about at the beginning is the salivary glands that produce the enzyme amylase, which helps to chemically break down carbohydrates in the mouth. So that's playing an important role in terms of chemical digestion in the mouth. Then we have the pancreas, and so that's going to be secreting pancreatic juices in the duodenum, and those juices include different enzymes for digestion and a base to help neutralize the stomach acid, because as the pyloric sphincter opens to let through the food from the stomach to the small intestine, some of that acid is going to go with it, and it can be really dangerous for our small intestine. So our pancreas helps to secrete a base solution to neutralize that and to help protect the lining of our small intestine. And then it also secretes hormones that regulate the absorption and storage of glucose. And we're going to go a little bit further with that later in the unit as well. So then we have the liver, largest organ in our body besides skin, largest interior organ in our body, I should say. and it's got three main jobs. So the first job is synthesis, and synthesis meaning it's producing something, and it's producing bile, which is a liquid that helps to emulsify fats. Second job is detox, so it's removing alcohol and other harmful toxins from the body. Our livers are super important for this reason. And storage, so the liver can also help to store vitamins and carbohydrates as glycogen for when we need them later. The gallbladder is this little guy, this little yellow guy in the picture here. So you can see that it's attached to the liver, and then it also has a tube, and this whole thing, this whole section here, both the liver and the gallbladder are attached to the duodenum. Oh, there we go. We can see in this picture a little bit better. So the gallbladder is responsible for storing bile that's produced by the liver, and it secretes it at the right time into the duodenum. So that bile is being produced in the liver, stored in the gallbladder, and then released when we have food passing through the duodenum. And we said that bile's job is to emulsify fats. Basically, that just means to break down fats into tiny globs, like you can see in this picture here. So it's able to, lipids are tricky because they're hydrophobic, so which just means that they don't dissolve well with water. So we can take care of them with bile, and bile helps to surround them and break them up into tiny globs like this that make it a lot easier for us to absorb. Okay, so that was the rundown of, again, I know I went kind of fast, so feel free to go back and just pause anytime you want. We're going to do one more quick run through, put it all together, and this I like to call the story of Mr. Cracker. So Mr. Cracker starts in the mouth. We've got the salivary glands that are going to be producing salivary amylase to help chemically break down the cracker. We've got our tongue and teeth that will mechanically break down the cracker. And then when we swallow, we'll go past the epiglottis that's covering the trachea. We don't want that cracker going down our windpipe. And we go down the esophagus, through the gastroesophageal sphincter, and into the stomach. In the stomach, we've got both chemical and mechanical digestion happening again. And then once we're ready to move on, we'll go through the pyloric sphincter and into the duodenum, into the first little section of the small intestine. So we can see here that the liver and the gallbladder are attached. They're going to be secreting bile, and the pancreas is also attached. It's going to secrete the base to neutralize the acid, as well as different hormones and enzymes. So next we speed through both the jejunum and the ileum, and nutrient absorption would have happened along that journey through all those tiny blood vessels that are connecting to it. And then we're going to enter the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. We go up the ascending colon, across the transverse colon, down the descending colon, through the sigmoid colon. So we've done all 4 stages of the colon there, where we've absorbed all of the water and leftover vitamins. We end up in the rectum, and our cracker is looking more like this at this point, and then it'll be stored there until ready for release. Okay, so that is everything. That's our little crash course on the digestive system. So I hope that made sense. If you guys have any questions, as always, please feel free to email me. Have a wonderful day.